It's the Brad and John Show.
You know what, John? I don't know if I started the recorder this morning.
Hey, it's...
Do me a favor. Talk for 30 seconds. Let me walk in the other studio real quick, okay? Talk for 30 seconds.
Well, hey, here's the thing. The great news in St. Louis yesterday, a judge ruled that KDHX will now revert to its original name of Double Helix. And not only is Double Helix back, but the court ordered the exhumation of the great Peter E. Parisi. You know, Pete Parisi hosted a show on Double Helix's public access television station. A guy named Jim Varagona has archived a number of the Worldwide Magazine episodes, and PEP is coming back to lead Double Helix Radio. He'll be paid a sum total of $1 million per year. He's going to bring back a bunch of the guys that used to help him out on the show, former Giant Assassin manager Big Daddy, pro wrestling manager Big Daddy will be coming back, and former MMWA SICW champion, the Giant Assassin, is actually going to be program director. And in honor of Pete Parisi's exhumation, there's actually a yellow cab that is parked out front now of the KDHX studios. So this is great news. Most people didn't see this coming.
Yep.
You know, a lot of people said that the board of KDHX should not be involved in pro wrestling and PEP, but I disagree.
John, did you drink some Brad Hildebrand water? Is that some? You sound like
I did, yeah.
You know,
yeah. And Pete Parisi is a former program director. Brad, you worked with him over a period of time. Did we lose A-Block to the ether?
No, I did not. No, it's recording. Okay. I did not. I never worked for Pete Parisi. I worked at the radio station, but I think it was after he was there. Boy, you know what? He did some weird stuff.
And what about you, Brad? You were just about to talk about KDHX before we talk about Pete Parisi.
The bankrupt. First off, I have to admit something, John, and I know I shouldn't admit this because some people might consider this to be some kind of tampering or something like that. But I did last week. I called the bankruptcy judge. There was over. You're laughing already.
Yeah. Obviously, because she's a normal human, she's not going to take a call from you.
Well, no. I talked to her and I explained to her why I didn't think she should approve this bankruptcy sale to the Gateway Creative Broadcasting people. And after I made my case, she said to me,
"What would you do with a brain if you had one?"
I'm sorry, John.
I moved my headphones just in time, Brad. That plays at about 3,000 decibels. And when I get a Wizard of Oz wind up from you, I just take the headphones off. That's awesome, Brad.
Okay, they approved the sale to Gateway Creative Broadcasting, aka
and they is who?
The bankruptcy court.
A judge, yes,
yeah,
correct.
And
okay,
which I said all along, this is a done deal. The fix is in. The fix is in. And the crazy thing about it is they're going to get an HD channel. Okay. I read an article just recently in one of my trade publications that when this HD channel stuff came out, that a lot of experts were saying, oh, this is going to change the game for FM broadcasting. Essentially, if you don't, and the amazing thing is, HD channel's been around for like 20 years now. Most people have no idea what it is.
Now, I had no idea until I read the Post-Dispatch story, Brad. I don't even know do I have one in my car, do you think?
What year is your car?
2014.
You may or may not. On the newer cars, if you get in, and like, for example, on some of the newer cars, if you, and I know this, I was in one of my family members' car, which is a 2022. Why is it that I drive around a 2010 and one of my family members has a 2022? Anyway.
Because you spend the day watching Whistling Diesel instead of selling radio ads? Go ahead.
Okay. The way this is a Ford radio, the way this one works is like, for example, if you put your radio, if you hit the button for 98.1 and then you rotate the tuning knob, it takes you to 98.1 HD2, then HD3, and then if they're in HD4. And a little known fact that the stations can have up to 8 HD channels. So in other words, you have and the way it works is that the main channel, I know this is sort of techno babble kind of stuff, but the main audio channel that you're listening to, which is the analog channel, automatically has to also be the HD channel as well too. So in other words, if you're listening to, like, for example, we don't have it, but if you're listening to like Y98, if you're listening to 98.1 and you tune to HD1, that is the simulcast thing. It's the same thing. And it's interesting because of the fact that when stations did this, they have to delay their analog channel by 7 seconds because it takes 7 seconds for the audio to process through the digital channel, which is sort of goofy. So
okay, so let's get off that and get back to KDHX. Okay, so you covered the HD technical specs.
Well, but the point being is nobody knows about this, and the problem is, and this is what one of the things the friends of the love of KDHX people talked about is this is not on all radios. This is only on newer radios.
Yeah, that's great. So only competent people who have a car that's made in the last 15 years might have it, right, Brad? And
John,
isn't it a nice little bone to throw at people and say, "Hey, look, you can keep a high def station, right?"
You know what the difference between us is, John?
What's that, Brad?
I'm a minimalist and you're an elitist.
Boy, that's the first time I've ever been called an elitist. Thank you, Brad. Coming from you, I appreciate that.
You are an elitist because
thank you, Brad.
It's like, oh, these poor slobs that drive around in old cars, they don't have the benefit of me driving around in my new car, that kind of stuff.
And did I not just say that my car is 11 years old, Brad?
But it probably has it in it. You need to go check. Okay.
I'm not going to check it. I don't care enough about local radio. After dealing with you for this long, I don't care about local radio anymore.
You know, John, there's going to come a day when, maybe I'll make that day right now. If you people from the friends of KDHX are listening, I will offer up this radio station to you. Because John says we're going nowhere and nobody buys any advertising. I'll just say, hey, guys, you want this station? Give me a call, 314-280-8880.
We can make that happen,
yeah.
Brad. Why don't we do that?
You know why? Because you know why? I can tell you why. They go, well, we can't hear it in the Central West End. You don't have a signal that goes in the
Brad.
Central West
Now,
End.
what else is there about? So there's a great deal going on. It looks like the people that KDHX owes money to are actually going to get paid. Imagine that actually working out for someone. And it looks like those folks will be made whole.
And some of those are buddy of the KDHX management. Let's be honest, they're buddy. Hey, we're going to go through bankruptcy, but we're going to get you paid 100%. So inflate those invoices and we're going to take care of you.
Imagine being the PR firm that worked for KDHX and KDHX didn't write you a check. And you're trying to make payroll, and you're trying to, pay your bills.
Okay.
And KDHX doesn't pay you.
John,
you're dang right that PR firm should be paid first.
John, here's my problem. It came out in the bankruptcy proceedings that it cost KDHX $1 million a year to run that radio station. I about fell off my chair. I thought to myself, it's a volunteer station. The only payroll they have is to the stupid management people that put the station in the problem to begin with. The volunteers, they don't make any money, and to the point where they own the license, so they're not like paying debt service for they're purchasing the station and stuff like that, and they own their own transmitter site, so they're not paying rent to a tower company, stuff like that. So let's boil it down. What's their expenses? Electric bills? I mean, maybe water bill? They're in the city of St. Louis. I mean, come on. I mean, what's the expense if you don't have any employees?
And that's my point, Brad. They should have paid the PR firm that they owed money to. They should have paid all these people in cash right away, expeditiously. But the good news is, you're leaving out the good news here, Brad. The folks are going to end up with, when I say the folks, the management of KDHX is going to end up with a ton of money that they can run a digital operation. They can run that high def channel. They're going to have a lot of money to do with whatever they want, right?
And they're going to have a lot of money to buy themselves new cars for all the board members.
And you don't think they earned it, Brad? You just talked about how KDHX did such great work for so many years, and quirky nerd face radio, or whatever these hobos call it. We need more quirky radio.
In spite of the management. Okay, John, let's go into your realm. Okay, let's say one of your companies you're invested in goes Tango Uniform. And for my aviation friends, you know what Tango Uniform means?
No, but it's can we leave the P-51 Mustang out of this?
Okay, my aviation friends will know exactly what Tango Uniform.
Okay, it means belly up. Okay, that's enough. Go.
Okay,
what's your analogy?
Let's say that one of John's companies that he's got all his millions of dollars of money invested in. Let's say the company goes bankrupt and John, the stock is wiped out. The stock goes to zero.
I wouldn't have owned it if it was going bankrupt.
I'm giving a scenario. I'm just giving the scenario. Okay, and then you find out through the bankruptcy proceedings that the guy who trashed the company, who caused your stock to go to zero, when the bankruptcy court says, okay, well, screw all
he should get paid first because he was the CEO. And if the contract states that he gets paid first and a judge agrees, good for him. He was the leader. He shouldered the responsibility.
And he trashed the place. He trashed
By the way,
it, John.
I wouldn't invest. I'm done investing in companies that don't make any money and don't go anywhere.
He trashed it. The guy trashed it and he gets rewarded for trashing it. That's what the KDHX board
got.
And
so the beauty of it is a national successful operation is going to own a local radio show. Some people that like to play the banjo or sing a cappella on Sunday morning aren't going to have a little some dinky nerd radio station to listen to. Big deal. And by the way, Brad, if people loved KDHX so much, why didn't they buy more advertising? Why didn't these local companies, people would listen and they'd go to Joe's Bar and Tavern and people would go there and buy. Why didn't the little idiot hipster places buy more radio advertising? If they love KDHX so much, where was their financial support?
Because you can't sell advertising on a non-commercial station. That's why. You can't sell advertising.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
and apparently you can't sell it very well on for-profit stations, can you, Brad?
Well, it's tough, John. You're more than welcome to go out and, knock on some doors every day to try to sell some stuff on this station.
We've talked about that, Brad, and when I saw what you were charging for ads, it obviously doesn't make sense for anybody to try to sell ads on your station.
Okay. We'll move past that. I think it's sad, and it's not. And the KDHX, not the Gateway Creative Broadcasting, aka 99.1 Joy 99, and it's funny. Someone sent me a bumper sticker yesterday. I'll send you this bumper sticker. It's pretty funny. They are not a national company. They're essentially a local company. They own 2 local stations, and the only thing they do, which is sort of weird, they have this, and this is something that nobody's even brought out. They already have an agreement with K-Love, which is the company they were fighting. They do business together, so they're sort of like they're like enemies, but they're not. It's like, what's the old saying? Stay close to your friends and stay even closer.
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
And stay closer to your enemies, stuff like that. Okay, the Hoffmans have bought the Missourian, and John texted me last week. Oh, this is great. Why do you think?
Isn't it awesome, Brad?
Why do you think it's great?
Was that why?
Why do you think it's great?
Oh, because you have new management coming into it. Do you read the Missourian twice a week, Brad?
No, because of the fact that and quite honestly, let me give you a thumbnail sketch of my relationship with the Missourian. If I won the Nobel Peace Prize, if I still had the radio station in Washington, and I won the Nobel Peace Prize, there would be no story in the Missourian about me because, and this is another one again of my thing where I think that media people are so screwed up. It's like, for example, going back in the day when at some of the stations I worked at, we would bust our butt to raise sometimes hundreds of thousands.
And then when they wrote the story about charity, would they mention the station's call letters, Brad?
On the TV station, a local radio station was involved in a fundraiser this weekend that raised $250,000. A local radio station. Okay, that could be one of 45 different stations, and to the point where, and the reason they're called a local radio station instead of the callers is because the station's saying, we're not giving them free advertising, okay? I am just the opposite. We talk about all these stations all the time. You've given glowing reports that if you weren't doing the show with me, you'd be watching Nick Faust on KLIS right now, right? You'd be, matter of fact, you probably sitting there.
Yeah, he's great. You can watch him from 6 to 8. Yeah,
you're probably sitting there watching it right now, for all I know. But the problem with what's happening to small town America, and Washington is probably emblematic of that. They used to be the Hillermans that owned Hillermann Nursery. They used to be...
What happened to their... And they used to advertise on your station. And then what happened, Brad?
They got bought out by the Hoffmans. And
oh, man, there goes $20 a month.
The interesting part of that is that I know someone that works there, still works there, and they told me their business is off quite a bit. Why? Because the locals used to essentially support the locals. Well, if you're not local anymore, because of the fact that could the locals go to Wally World or to Lowe's or to the Ace hardware store and buy a tree or a plant or fertilizer cheaper than what Hillerman's sending for? Yeah. Why didn't they do that? Because they're supporting Sandy Hillermann and her family and a locally business that's been there for 50 plus years. So
you're saying that locals aren't buying from Hillermann anymore because because locals don't like the Hoffmans.
John, I'll tell you one right now. No,
that's ridiculous.
No, I'll tell you one right now. I'm going to get in trouble for doing this on the air. Tony Frisella Jr., I had this conversation with him just the other day. There's a little building on Highway 47 when you go north of and it's owned by Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson, who's the insurance guy in Washington, okay? If you go by there at night now, you will see a Frisella truck and a Frisella trailer, which has a bunch of lawnmowers in it. Why is that stationed there? Because all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, after the Hillermanns sold out, a lot of people that had their grass cut by Hillermann Lawn Care were like, I'm not spending money with the Hoffmans. They now are hiring other companies when they used to hire the Hillermanns. So there's a perfect example. There's a locally owned company, the Frisellas, who've been here, 3 or 4 generations now. They are reaping the rewards of the Hoffmans buying Hillermann, and Hillermann, which is now owned, it's now called the Hoffmann Hillermann Nursery, is no longer getting all the business they used to because the locals are going like, we don't care that David Hoffmann grew up here and he says this bogus story. I lived in a house with no running water. Come on, dude. I mean, the guy is 65, 66 years old. Tell me how many people, unless you lived in the middle of you-know-what, Arkansas, you can't tell me that anybody who's under the age of 70 lived in a house with no running water. I don't believe that. I think that is BS. BS with a capital B and a capital S. It's all made to say, oh, I had such a poor upbringing. Look at me now. I'm a billionaire. And look at the information. I was just through Augusta yesterday, okay? All the places that they owned, they sold. Right down the street from the crap transmitter side, it was the Ferguson Tree Nursery. Gone! And matter of fact, they bought that, we're going to make lots of money selling trees. They lost their butt because guess what? Nobody would buy from them anymore. So they sold the property. They bought the property adjacent to the airport. We're going to give helicopter rides. We're going to put an FPO there. Everybody went, and to the point where they neglected to tell the city of Washington that they bought the place, and they're going to compete with the city of Washington by selling jet fuel and 100 low lead, the Emmaus home. We're going to make that as this beautiful place. And what they're doing, they're selling it. We're going to build this huge hotel in Augusta. Guess what? There's no huge hotel in Augusta. We're going to buy all the places in Defiance. What they call the two biker bars, if you go through the curve in 94 in Defiance, one of them is closed again. Somebody bought it. The Wenties bought it. They apparently didn't go well for them. I was by it Sunday. There's a for sale sign for Shockley Realty on that one. The one across the street, which was Dave's Bar. What's the guy's name who is the local guy who's in charge of all the Hoffmann properties? The CEO, is it Dave Simon or Mark Simon or something like that? You know what I'm talking about? Remember. No. Okay, that bar was called Dave's Place or something like that. Guess what? It's closed as well too. So, you can tout all you want about how great the Hoffmanns are. To me, they don't have a very good reputation of buying businesses and making a go of it. Sounds like they buy businesses and they put all this press release stuff out. We're the Hoffmanns, the Hoffmann family of companies. We're so wonderful. We're like Midas. Everything we touch turns to gold. I say, okay, if they start buying businesses, I'm going like, okay, that business is let's give it a year, 2 years. They're gone. You know what I'm saying?
I do. We talked about this on August 28th of last year. Brad, you ran through the Hillermann scenario, the Frisella scenario back then. And I pointed out, I don't want to be one of those guys that tells the same stories over and over again. I haven't mentioned this since August of last year. David Hoffmann is Brad with billions. And David makes some mistakes now and then. The difference is when David pivots on a building in Clayton, the Post-Dispatch covers it because it's important. Brad, when you don't renew a $10 domain next January, when you don't renew winsville.us, nobody will care. And the difference is you both take risks, but when David Hoffmann takes the risk, it's front page news and people throw popcorn and criticize it because David Hoffmann was successful with Oberweis, right? Like that business is doing great. We don't hear people touting Oberweis, except if you work for them and except for if you have investments in there. So I like David Hoffmann because I love Brad Hildebrand. And David Hoffmann is Brad with billions.
KDHX people, the station's all yours. Give me a call.
There we go. I love it, Brad.
And you know what? The show that'll be on when KDHX takes over it'll still be you and me. And what we'll do is we'll go back and forth. John will play his banjo for 5 minutes, and then I'll play an a cappella song for 5 minutes.
I love it, Brad.
It'd be the Brad and John show. Hey, John, it's your turn for the banjo. Da 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 da. And then I'll come on and I'll go, my friend.
You think we can find a little albino kid somewhere in Defiance to sit on a porch while we play dueling banjos?
John Best is the man of all my dreams. He's the person that does everything perfectly right. And then it's John's turn.
Caleb, please put an offer into Brad. We'll wrap this whole thing up.
You won't hear that on 93.3. You won't hear that. You won't hear Dave. You won't hear my old employee who still have his stuff in the basement of the radio station here. You won't have anyway, I'm just going to move on.